Stop staring at charts. It's time to take action. Crypto arbitrage lets you crypto. Arbitrage paid my rent, my car, and my freedom, all before I turned 30. Fit from price gaps across exchanges.
Today, there will be a very detailed video where I will tell you everything I know about crypto arbitration. I have been involved in cryptocurrency arbitrage for over 5 years, so I have accumulated enough experience that I want to share with you today. Now I will explain step by step what crypto arbitrage is, what tools I personally use, how to find working bundles, how to calculate profits and risks correctly, and most importantly, how much you can really earn by doing crypto arbitrage in the current market conditions. Let's get started. What is crypto arbitrage, in simple words? Crypto arbitrage is a way to make money on the price difference of the same cryptocurrency on different exchanges. Imagine that you notice the same coin, which is cheaper on one exchange, for example, $1, and more expensive on another exchange, for example, $1.10. You buy it on the first site, then transfer it to the second, and immediately sell it. Thus, your profit is the price difference minus all fees. But the question arises why there are such price differences at all. The fact is that each exchange is a separate ecosystem with its own audience, with its own level of supply and demand, liquidity, and even technical conditions. Because of this, there are price differences that professional arbitrators use to their advantage. Now there is an important point that a beginner needs to understand. In practice, everything is a bit more complicated. The price is constantly changing, commissions can be quite large, and transfers between exchanges take time, during which the spread, that is, the price difference, can disappear. That is why it is important to be fast and consider a lot of details in crypto arbitration. I'll tell you exactly how to do this later. How much can you really earn on crypto arbitrage? One of the most popular questions from newbies is how much money can you earn on crypto arbitrage? There is no one exact answer here. And if someone promises you a stable 20, 30, or 50% per month, you can immediately close this video or send this person far away and for a long time. In reality, profits from arbitrage are always situational. What does this mean in practice? Sometimes there are situations when the spread on a coin is literally 1 to 2%, and in this case, you will be able to earn money only if you have a lot of capital, for example, $10,000 and above, because due to commissions, a small deposit simply will not give a tangible income. In other situations, the spread can reach 5 to 10%, which is much more profitable, and even with a small deposit, you can make good money. Personally, I have seen very rare cases when the spread reached 100% or more. This usually happens with various hacks, but there is an extremely high risk here, and I will explain why a little later. As for the average return, let's focus on real numbers. Let's say you start with $10,000. With a competent approach, in a year or two, you can increase your capital 5 to 10 times. That is, it is quite realistic to make $50,000 to $100,000 if you do not make gross mistakes. I emphasize that in the first month, you will most likely study and test bundles rather than earn real money. It's okay, and I've been through the same thing. Now let's talk about the most unpleasant but very important topic. These are the risks and losses in crypto arbitration. Cryptocurrency arbitrage seems simple, but it's only at first glance. The first serious risk is hacking or just a scam of exchanges. Personally, over the past 5 years, I have had many unpleasant cases of hacking cryptocurrency exchanges and scams. For example, sites such as FTX, Huobi, now HTX, BXB Exchange, Buybox, and others, where my total cryptocurrency was stolen by about $100,000. And this is far from the only case in the crypto industry. Therefore, it is extremely important to keep funds on exchanges only during arbitrage, and keep the main capital in cold wallets such as Ledger or Trezor. The second type of risk is the abrupt closure of deposits and withdrawals on exchanges. This happens often, especially with sudden market movements, and I've been in similar situations more than once. For example, it happened that I sent a deposit, and the exchange suddenly closed the deposit of funds, and my coins hung for a day, a week, or even a month. Sometimes the coins arrived later when the spread had already disappeared, and sometimes they were completely lost. This risk should always be taken into account when calculating the transaction. The third risk is technical errors during translations. For example, sending crypts to the wrong address, confusing networks, or specifying an incorrect memo tag. Believe me, such mistakes happen even for experienced users, and even more so for beginners. One such mistake can cost you the entire amount of the transaction. To avoid this, always double-check addresses, networks, fees, and use address books on exchanges and wallets. And finally, do not forget about the sudden changes in the exchange rate of cryptocurrencies. While you are transferring coins between exchanges, the price may change dramatically, and instead of making a profit, you will receive a loss. This is especially true for little-known coins with low liquidity. If you are a beginner, I advise you to always test each bundle on small amounts. You may earn quite a bit at first, but you will also lose a little if something goes wrong. Now let's look at the specific steps that a beginner must take to find the first working bundles manually. Step 1. Open the CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, or DropStab websites and go to the section with the top rising or top falling coins for the past 24 hours. Why go there? Well, because usually the most interesting spreads occur on coins that have a strong price movement. You can also use DEX Screener and DEX tools. Step 2. Select several coins and start manually checking their prices on different exchanges. To do this, click on the selected coin and look at the list of exchanges where it is traded. Your task is to find the difference in price of at least a few percent between the exchanges. I will tell you about the automation of the search for profitable deals further. Step 3. Have you found the spread? Great. Now open the calculator and count the fees. Let's say the price of a coin on Binance is $100 and on Huobi it is $105. This means a spread of 5%. Next, we take into account the commissions, approximately 0.1% for buying and selling on each exchange, as well as the cost of transferring coins through the selected network. For example, ERC20, TRC20, BBEP20, and others. If, after deducting the commission, you still have at least 2 to 3% profit, then this is a working bundle and you can try it. Step 4. Be sure to check the transfer speed on the selected network. For example, the TRC20 network is fast and cheap. The ERC20 is expensive and slow. The BSC Binance Smart Chain network is usually fast and inexpensive too. This significantly affects the success of the transaction. Step 5. Make a test transaction with a minimum amount, for example, $10 to $50. This way you will check how long the transfer actually takes and whether the spread will close during this time. When you get comfortable with such manual checks, it will be possible to switch to automatic tools, which we will discuss further. After you have learned how to manually search for bundles, tested several transactions, and received the first results, you can think about switching to automated tools. What are they, and why are they needed at all? Manual search for bundles is of course a great start, but over time, it becomes clear that manual search requires too much time and effort. When you manually monitor 2 to 3 exchanges and several dozen coins, that's one thing. But when there are 20 to 30 exchanges and hundreds or even thousands of coins, automation is essential. It is for such purposes that special parsers and scanners exist. These are programs or services that automatically analyze coin prices on dozens of exchanges simultaneously. Professionals usually use the Arbitrage scanner service, which automatically requests information through the API of exchanges and checks thousands of coins simultaneously. The link to the service is in the description. As soon as a working bundle with a set spread level appears, for example above 2 to 3%, I receive an alert on my phone, and I instantly go to check what is happening there. This saves you hours that used to be spent searching manually. However, it is important to understand that access to such software is often paid, and a good parser is not cheap. Why? Well, it's simple. Creating and maintaining such programs requires money and constant updating. No one will give away such software for free, otherwise everyone would use the same tool and the bundles would instantly disappear. If you are a beginner with a small capital, you should not buy expensive parsers right away. You can also do this manually. Why the best solution for a beginner is to monitor profitable deals through an arbitration scanner, because it is not only an arbitration service, but also a place where you can find training and new income ideas. Believe me, it's not as difficult as it seems. Now, there are a lot of training materials that will help you figure this out. Beginners often think that they are the only ones who notice the difference in the price of a coin, but this is not the case at all. Arbitrage bots have been operating on almost all major exchanges for a long time. These are special programs that instantly respond to the slightest price differences and automatically make trades, taking small spreads, usually 1 to 2%. It's almost impossible to win against a bot manually. Why? Let's look at a simple example. Let's say there is a difference of 1.5% between Binance and OKX. While you are buying a coin with your hands on one exchange, then making a transfer and selling it on another, the bot has already instantly made this deal and closed the spread. There is simply no chance for you to make it. What should I do? Exit 1. Look for situations where the spread is higher than 3 to 5%. So for some reason, bots either don't have time or they don't specifically take these risks. As a rule, such moments occur during the listing or delisting of coins, during sudden disruptions of large exchanges, when deposits or withdrawals are suddenly closed, in crisis situations, for example, after hacking an exchange or a project. It is in such situations that I most often earn the largest profit. Why don't bots go there and close the spreads right away? Everything is simple. There is too much uncertainty and risk in such cases, and bot owners don't want to risk large sums automatically. This is where a living person gets the advantage. You can quickly analyze the situation and decide whether to take risks or not. My advice: keep an eye on the social networks of crypto exchanges: Twitter, Telegram, Discord. It is there that operational news about listings, delistings, technical failures, and other important events are often published. This way, you will learn important information before others and be able to pick up profitable trades. As an example, you can use less popular exchanges such as LBank, CoinNex, BVox, Arbit, and other low-liquid platforms. They often have spreads for small amounts that can be closed manually. However, it is not recommended to store significant funds on such exchanges, since the level of trust in them is low. In general, it is better to keep only the working capital necessary for arbitrage on exchanges. It's better to keep everything else in your wallets. For example, I recently saw a spread on CoinNex, an example of an arbitration transaction. The situation: after delisting from Binance, the price dropped by 60% per day. Action: bought a burger on BitGet in the amount of 3,000 UST, brought it to CoinNex, sold it for 313 UST. Profit plus 313 UST. There are dozens of such situations per day, especially on low liquid exchanges after delisting or news. Smaller exchanges usually have market makers for large platforms, but there are a lot of trading pairs everywhere, and not all have good market makers. Because of this, spreads for small amounts often appear. For beginners, this is just the thing. You can earn $200, $500 per day. It's not much, but it's a good start. Now let's talk in detail about which moments are considered the most profitable and how to use them to earn as much as possible. First of all, it is worth paying attention to the listing of new coins on major exchanges such as Binance, Coinbase, OKX, Huobi, KuCoin, and others. Such events are often accompanied by sharp price movements, increased liquidity, and arbitrage opportunities. The fact is that when a coin is released on major exchanges, its price is often very different from other platforms. For example, a coin has just been listed on Binance at a price of $10, and on a small exchange it still costs $7, $8. If you quickly notice such a difference, you have a chance to make a profit of 10 to 20% in a short time, and sometimes even more. However, it is worth remembering that the competition at such moments is simply huge, so you need to act as quickly and confidently as possible. The second is the delisting of coins from major exchanges. This is a less popular method, but sometimes even more profitable. For example, Binance announces that it is removing some coin from the listing, and traders start to panic and sell it sharply at a reduced price. On other exchanges, the price has not yet had time to fall at this point. So if you can quickly buy in a panic and sell for more elsewhere, you can make a good profit. This will allow you to survive even a series of losses without critical damage to your total deposit. The second important rule is to always have a reserve capital. This is the so-called airbag, which is not used in arbitration transactions, but lies separately on a reliable cold wallet or even outside the crypt. The size of such a reserve should be at least 20 to 30% of your total capital. Why is this necessary? Imagine that you lost some money in arbitration. Thanks to the reserve, you will be able to quickly restore your capital, reusing funds that were prepared in advance for such cases. The third thing is to enter detailed statistics of all your transactions. I personally recommend using regular Excel or Google tables, where you record in detail each transaction: which coin, exchange, percentage, spread, amount of commissions, total profit or loss. In a couple of months, such a table will become your best tool for analyzing and improving results, because you will see which exchanges or coins you earn most often and which ones you lose money on. Fourth, don't chase profits. Very often, beginners see a large spread, for example 50%, and immediately enter the entire amount without calculating the risks. As a result, they often lose money because they did not take into account any fees or technical nuances. You always test a new bundle for a small amount first, and only then gradually increase the transaction volume. And finally, never rush. It is better to skip a few questionable trades than to lose a large amount due to haste or panic. Arbitrage is a long-term game where it is important to earn steadily a little bit and not quickly hit the jackpot once and then lose everything. Now I want to talk about the real results that can be expected from crypto arbitrage. I understand that most beginners are interested in the question of how much I can earn. Let's look at this as realistically as possible. For example, over the past year I have earned about 25% of my total capital. This is considered a good enough result given the current market conditions. But this is not always the case. There were months when I went into the red by 3 to 5% because I got into unpleasant situations with delayed deposits, a sharp drop in the exchange rate, or technical failures. The average result for a year can range from 10% to 150% for a large amount of capital. But it depends on your experience, discipline, and market conditions. Well, and to a large extent from luck. For a beginner, the first 6 months should expect much more modest results. In the first months, most likely, you will not earn anything at all, and you may even lose small amounts due to mistakes and ignorance of the nuances. This is absolutely normal. The most important thing is not to stop. Keep learning, analyze mistakes, improve strategies, and over time you will be able to achieve a stable plus. Now let's look at a few additional ways to find profitable arbitrage situations that few people talk about. First of all, you should closely monitor the social networks of projects and coins, especially Telegram and Twitter, because that's where the first news about technical problems, deposit closures, updates, listings, and so on appear. The sooner you find out about it, the sooner you'll find a profitable bundle. By the way, the arbitration scanner has the ability to track social media activity. Secondly, it is always worth monitoring unusual changes in trading volumes. For example, if a coin that used to trade for $100,000 to $200,000 a day abruptly starts trading for $1 million or more, this is a signal to pay attention to it. Such volume jumps often indicate that there is a strong spread somewhere or market manipulation is underway, which can also make good money. Thirdly, you can use special services such as Arbitration Scanner, which automatically notify you about such situations. Thanks to this service, you will be able to find out about major transactions, exchange rate changes, and other events, and this gives you serious advantages in terms of reaction speed. Well, another feature that few people use is the monitoring of small and little-known exchanges. Large platforms monitor everything, but small exchanges can have huge spreads, especially with sudden market movements. Sometimes it is there that you can find the most interesting and profitable situations, as an example of the stock exchange, which I have already mentioned above. Well, or here are a few more garbage cans that I monitor from time to time. These are Poloniex, Femex, Bitmart, XT, Probit, exchanges with low liquidity where price anomalies often occur. Such platforms can provide good opportunities for manual arbitration, especially on small volumes. However, it is important to remember that you should not store large amounts on them, as the level of trust and protection on these exchanges is limited. Such exchanges can be found on CoinMarketCap, CoinGecko, or DropStop, but here you need to keep in mind the risks. Small exchanges are less reliable, so keep the minimum amounts there and use them only for quick transactions. Now let's talk about the most important part of crypto arbitrage, without which it is impossible to earn steadily. This is proper risk management and your capital management. No matter how tempting a profitable situation may look, one should never forget that arbitrage is a highly risky way to make money. The first rule that I personally use, plus or minus professional arbitrators, is the 10% rule. It sounds like this: never use more than 10% of your entire deposit in one arbitration transaction. Why exactly are these numbers? Because even if you make a mistake, end up closing deposits, or an unexpected drop in the exchange rate of a coin, you will lose only part of the funds, not the entire capital. This will allow you to survive even a series of losses without critical damage to your total deposit. The second important rule is to always have a reserve capital. This is the so-called airbag, which is not used in arbitration transactions, but lies separately on a reliable cold wallet or even outside the crypt. The size of such a reserve should be at least 20 to 30% of your total capital. Why is this necessary? Imagine that you lost some money in arbitration. Thanks to the reserve, you will be able to quickly restore your capital, reusing funds that were prepared in advance for such cases. The third thing is to enter detailed statistics of all your transactions. I personally recommend using regular Excel or Google tables, where you record in detail each transaction: which coin, exchange, percentage, spread, amount of commissions, total profit or loss. In a couple of months, such a table will become your best tool for analyzing and improving results, because you will see which exchanges or coins you earn most often and which ones you lose money on. Fourth, don't chase profits. Very often, beginners see a large spread, for example 50%, and immediately enter the entire amount without calculating the risks. As a result, they often lose money because they did not take into account any fees or technical nuances. You always test a new bundle for a small amount first, and only then gradually increase the transaction volume. And finally, never rush. It is better to skip a few questionable trades than to lose a large amount due to haste or panic. Arbitrage is a long-term game where it is important to earn steadily a little bit and not quickly hit the jackpot once and then lose everything. Now I want to talk about the real results that can be expected from crypto arbitrage. I understand that most beginners are interested in the question of how much I can earn. Let's look at this as realistically as possible. For example, over the past year I have earned about 25% of my total capital. This is considered a good enough result given the current market conditions. But this is not always the case. There were months when I went into the red by 3 to 5% because I got into unpleasant situations with delayed deposits, a sharp drop in the exchange rate, or technical failures. The average result for a year can range from 10% to 150% for a large amount of capital. But it depends on your experience, discipline, and market conditions. Well, and to a large extent from luck. For a beginner, the first 6 months should expect much more modest results. In the first months, most likely, you will not earn anything at all, and you may even lose small amounts due to mistakes and ignorance of the nuances. This is absolutely normal. The most important thing is not to stop. Keep learning, analyze mistakes, improve strategies, and over time you will be able to achieve a stable plus. For example, my friend started with a $1,000 deposit. For the first 3 months, he constantly made mistakes and earned nothing, then gradually began to gain ground, and by the end of the first year he increased his deposit to $5,000. Now, 2 years later, he has about $20,000 and he consistently makes 5 to 10% per month. This is a realistic scenario for most beginners if you act carefully and with discipline. Therefore, it is important to understand that arbitration is not a lottery or guaranteed money. This is a difficult job that requires discipline, analysis, and constant learning. Never trust those who guarantee a steady income in this area. If you are ready for this, you can earn money over long distances. I've been arbitraging for 5 years now, and I still don't know how much I'll earn or lose next month. Now let me answer the most common questions of newbies, which are regularly received in comments, private messages, and in chat rooms. I think the answers to them will help you better understand arbitration and avoid many mistakes. What is the best amount to start arbitrage with? I will answer as honestly as possible. The optimal deposit to start is from $500 to $2,000. If the amount is too small, for example, $50 to $100, then fees and transaction costs will eat up all profits. If the deposit is too large, more than $10,000, you can immediately lose a significant amount without understanding the mechanics. Start with a small but comfortable amount and gradually increase it. Do I need to pay taxes on the profits from crypto arbitrage? It depends on the country where you live and where you are a tax resident. In most countries, income from cryptocurrencies is subject to income tax or personal income tax. Therefore, it is better to check this with a tax consultant in advance, especially if you withdraw large amounts through banks. Which exchanges are best suited for novice arbitrage? It is best to start with reliable and popular platforms such as Binance, OKX, KuCoin, Bybit, Huobi, Gate, and others. There are minimal risks of scams and fraud, plus they have good liquidity, which allows you to quickly buy or sell a coin. 4. Is it possible to engage in crypto arbitrage over the phone? In short, yes, it is possible. Almost all major exchanges have convenient mobile applications. However, full-fledged arbitration requires a quick reaction and accurate calculation of the commission, but it is still more convenient to do this from a computer or laptop. The mobile application is more suitable for monitoring and emergency transactions. 5. Do I need to have in-depth knowledge of cryptocurrencies and programming? Deep technical knowledge is not necessary, but you will need to understand the basic principles of how blockchains, exchanges, and commissions work. Programming is not necessary, but over time you can learn at least the basics to automate the search for bundles yourself. Is it possible to completely lose your deposit? Yes, there is always a risk of losing your deposit completely, especially if you violate money management rules or invest in risky transactions. That is why it is important to follow the risk management that I mentioned earlier. I hope these answers will help you save time and money by avoiding mistakes. My main advice to you is not to expect easy money. Arbitration is not an easy way to make money, but a difficult, painstaking job where profit directly depends on your patience, discipline, and the ability to learn from mistakes. If I have failed to dissuade you from trying to make money in crypto arbitration and you are determined to act, then I have left a link for you in the description of this video to a service that I use myself and which will help you in automating the search for profitable deals. If you like this video and would like to see more practical examples of transactions, analyses, specific cases, my income and losses, then subscribe to the channel and watch other videos on crypto arbitrage in a separate playlist. There, I regularly show my real deals and share useful information. Also, write in the comments what topics in crypto arbitration you are still interested in. Perhaps in the following videos, I will talk in detail about them.